Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
It's time for a monthly episode. I don't know why, for some reason, my brain wanted to make that sound like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. A creepy episode. We don't at all. That's just apparently where my brain went. I don't know why, guys. Anyway, welcome to, what month are we actually, this is coming out, Michelle? Oh my god, I have no
This
brain
is
today.
coming out.
September?
No, this is our August episode.
Because we do record in the right month. Okay. Haha. Samey months.
We're getting back into the swing of things, y'all.
We really are, guys. So before, actually, I'll just do this little bit of self-disclosure before launching into all the everythings, because it's almost certainly relevant. I feel like a pile of hot trash today. Guys, my gut has been unhappy since like 2:15 this morning, and it has not really let up, so I've barely slept, and I am ouchy and blah. And so in order to be here with you guys today doing this at all, I'm also a wee bit stoned. So full disclosure, if I seem slightly, I don't know, somethinger than usual, I probably am. But let's launch into, let's see, talking about the topic. Do we do the topic a little bit? You're so much better at this part, Michelle. I knew when to put all of the, like, yay, good stuff, us, when it was all at the end. Like, that made sense to me. I knew where it went. But this at the beginning thing, I'm still shit at the timing of it. I never know where to put it before I introduce the topic, or, like, do a teaser for the topic and then do all the self-promotion stuff, or the whole intro and then the promotion. I don't know.
Why don't you just do the promotion stuff and then we'll dive in? That might be a little easier.
Excellent! I need a structure! Anyway, guys, I just really think I've actually flubbed the intro every single time it's been mine since we've done this part, because my whole brain goes, I don't know where to put it. So, fantastic. Let's do the self-promotion part first. So, first and foremost, a place you can help support us and the podcast is Patreon. So going to patreon.com/dbtandme. You can also check out our Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/dbtandme. I was reading some reviews on there the other day, Michelle. Actually, they're very sweet. I don't know if you've ever gone on and looked at a little.
People are fantastic on Etsy. They're so on it with going back and giving us stars and reviewing things after they've gotten
it's very
stuff.
sweet.
It's really awesome.
So anyway, thanks everybody who has already done so, and please feel free to go check it out. We've got some cool shit. Give us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you happen to be listening to us. Send us an email, dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, check out our other stuff. So The Couch and the Chair, our other podcast, and our book. Right? DBT for Everyone. It's got a longer title, but nobody uses it. Let's just be frank.
Yeah. Amazon will find it if you put in DBT for Everyone.
Yes, it's true. I have never looked for it on Amazon with anything other than DBT for Everyone because I'm too lazy to type it all in.
Yep.
So that's all true. Excellent. Now into the actual topic. So, this is actually a listener-suggested topic this month, which is fun. We had a couple of them come in, I would say, while Michelle was on maternity leave, and this is the first one we're getting around to, so thanks to those of you who write in with those. So this listener was asking us to do a topic around excessive worrying. Right? They were talking about how that's a behavior or a thought process that they engage in a lot that's really hard for them to control. They listed some skills that they've tried, but they asked Michelle and I to do an episode where we did some behavior chain analysis on that idea, focusing specifically on skills that can help manage or reduce excessive worrying. So, a very brief overview of what a behavior chain analysis is. It's a skill in DBT that's meant to help us better understand our own behaviors so that we can have more compassion for ourselves and also so we can have better insight for inciting change in ourselves. So you'll hear Michelle and I go step by step through the process for our own, which I guess I'm skipping ahead a little bit, we did once. Anyway, but if you want to hear a real breakdown on the whole process and everything we think about it, etc., we did release a whole episode on them back in November of 2020. But basically, it does just ask you about what a behavior is that you're engaging in that's problematic. Again, DBT is behavior in the middle, so this is one of those skills that focuses primarily on behavior. And then you kind of spread outward from the behavior in time, looking at what came before it, what consequences came after it, and helping yourself understand why you got to where you got to and what came of it. So they're actually quite helpful. If Michelle and I are transparent, though, I think we have to admit that we find them to be wild pains in the ass, which is why we don't...
They're tedious.
They're so tedious. There you go. That's the right way of putting it. They're tedious. They're long. It takes a long time, sometimes a very long time, to do them. But they take a very long time because they're very thorough, right? And I think it'd be hard to do a behavior chain analysis properly and not learn something about yourself and about what happened as a course of the inquiry that you put yourself through. So I do think they're pretty useful. I just tend to be willful about doing them. Michelle and I were just talking before the episode started about being willful about using skills that work sometimes. Sometimes like, I don't wanna. That's so much effort. I don't want to. But hopefully you can listen to our examples and find some stuff that you find helpful. Michelle and I did just go into our lives recently. Not necessarily, I don't know, something that's happening today, but things that have been going on for us recently where we've been experiencing perhaps an excess of worry, and where we also have perhaps not acted as skillfully as we would like to during the entirety of that process. And so we each did a behavior chain analysis on those issues for ourselves. And yeah, hopefully our differing examples and reflections can help you guys find your own unique way to address your worries, because I think there definitely is going to be unique flavor to this because our worries show up differently and the behaviors we engage in because of them are going to be very different. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And initially when Kate mentioned that this was like a listener suggested topic and how the listener wanted us to do, was curious about how a behavior chain analysis could help with excessive worry. Like, my initial gut reaction was like, I don't know if it can, right? like Kate was saying, behavior, right? The B part of DBT. Behavior chain analyses are not meant to be done for like our thoughts. They're meant to be done for our behaviors. But then when I thought about it further, I'm like, well, here's the truth if we really look at it. Whenever we're thinking or feeling something pretty strongly, there's a behavior that stems from that. And it may not always be like a big in-your-face behavior, but there's something that you're doing with that worry. Something like that. So, once I kind of thought about it a little further, I was like, okay, we could definitely do this. We can make this work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will go into what I wrote down for my behavior chain analysis shortly, but I thought it might be helpful to start off with giving a little bit of context to what I'm about to talk about with the situation in my life that I chose it for. So basically, as you all know, listening to this, I'm coming back from maternity leave. So I took my leave, I started in early April, and then my daughter was born April 13th, and then my plan was to come back at the beginning of August. So I planned to, the week of August 5th, send out emails to all my clients saying, hey, I'm back, let's get something on the schedule. And we mentioned this, I think, in our episode we recorded with Whitney about perinatal mental health. Washington State has this cool thing where when you're on leave because you just gave birth, you get paid while you're on leave. So basically, I did not experience an interruption in my income at all while I was on leave. I continued to get paid the same I would have as if I were seeing clients and working. So that was really cool. So then coming back in August, there were a couple things going on, and I'll probably wind up touching on these a little bit when I go over number 3, if you're following along with the worksheet. If you want a worksheet, I mean, we could post it in the group too, but yeah, just Google behavior chain analysis worksheet from DBT and you can find it and follow along with the steps yourself. But there's the third question that talks about like vulnerabilities and things like that. So I'll talk about it a little more when I get there. But my plan was that once I returned to work in August, I was going to start paying myself more. You know, yes, I am my own boss being in private practice. Yes, I can kind of pay myself however I want to and whenever I want to. But I have it set up in my business where I basically pay myself every 2 weeks the same amount, like somebody receiving a paycheck. So I decided that I was going to up my paychecks, right? I was going to up the amount that I was putting into our, personal account. And a big reason for this was because now that I'm returning to work, my son is going to be in paid childcare for the first time. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out what it's going to look like to pay myself more so that we have more money to cover the costs of his childcare. And so before my leave started, I mapped this out really in detail of like, okay, this is how many client spots I need. And if I fill all those client spots, then this is how much money I'll be making. And then I'll be good to go, right? I did a lot of financial preparation to make sure that I would be able to pay myself the amount that I've decided I'm now going to start paying myself. So all of that lays the groundwork for what I'm going to be talking about in my behavior change analysis, which is basically worrying around finances. Because as I'm recording this for all of you, I have now had 1 week of work under my belt, and I have noticed so much worry around finances in the last couple weeks with starting to come back. It has not gone the way that I thought it would go. And that's really scary, right? That's scary, I think, on principle when you come up with a plan and you're like, my plan is on lock, right? Like it's foolproof. It's good to go. I know this will work. And then it's not working. Yeah. Lots of fear, as you'll hear when I go over my links in my chain. Yeah, exactly. So let's get to the questions, why don't we? So the questions on the page, I'll just read the question itself and then I'll tell you my response. So it wants you to start the same way like with check the facts. It wants you to start with what is the emotion that you're checking the facts around. A behavior chain analysis, the first question in that is, what exactly is the major problem behavior that I'm analyzing? So how is all of this worry showing up? The way that it's showing up for me is that I am checking my work phone more than I probably ever have. I'm just waiting for clients to email me back. I'm waiting for them to schedule. I'm waiting for them to text me because I've reached out to all of them at this point being like, hey, I'm back at work. Let's schedule something. So I'm constantly checking my phone to see if they're scheduling. I'm not keeping track of how many times a day I'm checking my phone, but it's a lot. I'm checking it multiple times an hour, if I'm being honest. And it's reaching that point where it's really like occupying my mind. It feels compulsive to want to check my phone as much as I'm checking it. Like I'm checking it first thing in the morning, last thing before I go to bed, and multiple times throughout the day in between. And so that's not really a healthy behavior, to be checking my phone as often as I'm checking it. So that's what I said is the problem behavior. If I want to get really specific, as I said, what exactly is the major problem behavior, it's the frequency of how much I'm checking it, right? Like checking my phone is not bad. That's needed. That's important. That can be healthy. But I'm checking it so often that I know it's not healthy. How often I'm going to check it, which again, like I said, is multiple times an hour at this point. I'm checking it probably like every 10 minutes. Like, did so-and-so get back to me? Have they gone back to me? Have they gone back to me? Right? It doesn't feel good. That's not what I want to be experiencing. Number 2 asks, what prompting event in the environment started me on the chain to my problem behavior? So what happened right before the urge or thought came into my mind? So it was really, for me, I think the prompting event was the day that I sent that initial email out to all my clients. Once that email was out in the world, I started worrying right away of like, who's going to get back to me? I would even say, I mean, really was kind of within the first 24 hours of sending out the email, because I wanted to keep a really open mind, to be like chill and relaxed the first 24 hours after I sent it. But after that period of time passed, then the worries really started to kick in. But to some degree, they started from the moment that I sent that email. So that's what I chose as my prompting event for my worry. And then with number 3, it says, describe what things in myself and in my environment made me vulnerable. So I explained some of that story already to all of you, but I'll go a little more in depth as I answer this question. So my plan was to send out an email to my clients the week of August 5th and then start meeting with people the week of August 12th. Well, there was a thing that happened the day before August 5th, which is that I went online to submit my weekly hours for getting that paid leave through the state, right? That amazing, awesome thing that Washington State has where they'll pay me when I'm on leave. Every week, what you have to do is log into a system and basically just check a couple boxes saying, yep, I didn't work this week. You should still pay me, right? So I did this every week while I was on leave, no problem. Well, on August 4th, which was a Sunday, I went on to do that, thinking I still had to do that a couple more times before I actually returned to work. And I got this message that basically said, you've already run out of your leave. You don't have these 2 weeks of leave that you thought you had. That was pretty scary. So even though I was already planning to send an email to my clients on August 5th, that changed everything for me, because I was like, oh, I'm not getting these couple extra weeks of leave from the state like I thought I would be getting. Now I really need to get clients in the door. Sooner than I thought I did. I need to start scheduling people like this week, the week of August 5th, not the week of August 12th. I need people on my schedule now. So that really made me vulnerable to worry, was finding out that I wasn't getting these extra weeks of leave that I thought I was. That was pretty scary. But if we really take it back, right? Because this is, I think, the thing about this question about vulnerability. Vulnerability can start weeks before an actual prompting event. And if I really take it back for me, I think I started being more vulnerable to worries about finances back in January when my husband and I bought this new house. You know, our mortgage payment tripled. Like,
I don't know if I realized it was that much. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. It tripled for what we were paying with our previous mortgage. And again, I crunched a lot of numbers. I was like, okay, we can do this. This is okay. But buying that house, which I love our new house, I wouldn't change anything about moving to it. But that definitely increases your financial worries. Making the decision to put my son into childcare, that plops hundreds more dollars a month on your plate, even though he's only in childcare part-time. Like, yep. That's hundreds of dollars that we need to find. So there were all of these things changing in our financial landscape that you could say were happening before I went back to work. I was about to say, I have obviously not been sleeping well. Because I'm a new mom. My daughter actually sleeps great at night, but I'm running on maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. Maybe, if I'm lucky. If she doesn't wake up, you know. But I'm not going to bed as early as I need to. There's just so much to get done in the evening after the kids are asleep that I sacrifice my sleep trying to get everything done. So I'm tired. I'm nursing, which takes just a ton from you. I mean, you burn so many calories nursing. I'm constantly hungry. I'm worn out. Like, it's just a lot. I'm still in like a postpartum body. And that alone, I think, sets you up for a lot of changes hormonally and physically and all of that, right? Like, my body is just not at 100%. And it won't be for a long time. So you have all of that kind of lurking that sets me up for stress, or like, again, when a stressful thing happens, I just might not be as well resourced to cope with it. You have those things. You also have it where my husband and I sometimes do not always see eye to eye on finances. We have had a lot of difficult conversations around what it looks like to manage our money. And in general, if I had to summarize it, I tend to be a glass half full person with finances. He's a glass half empty person. So we could be looking at the exact same number in our account for how much money we have. And I'm like, ooh, look, we're doing well. And he's like, what do you mean we're broke? And I'm like, why are we having such vastly different experiences there? So that's been a thing going on in our relationship in the past. So then when you have a situation like this come up where I'm having kind of an oh shit moment around I'm not getting paid the money that I thought I was going to be getting paid, and now I'm sending out this email to my clients, right, as like the prompting event for my worry. Oh, we have all this stuff in the background. That's what I really think they're getting at with question number 3. They're like, what is in the background? Tell me everything that I wouldn't know about why you have this worry. What could be, again, making this worry bigger, all of that. So I hope that paints a decent picture of, again, what my life is like and what was happening before I even sent out this email to my clients. Okay, I'm going to turn my page. I have this physically on a hard copy of a paper. So I know you guys might hear some rustling as I turn the page here to actually get into the chain part of the behavior chain analysis. So when you're filling out a chain, you are writing down in excruciating detail every single thing that you felt. I actually just noticed this, Kate. I did not touch at all, because they have different types of chain of links, they say, that can be in the chain. There's actions, body sensations, cognitions or thoughts, events, and feelings.
Yep.
I didn't touch at all on body sensations. I just like breezed right over that. So isn't that interesting that I did not make any note of what I noticed in my body?
Yeah, your embodied
when these things were happening.
Yeah.
Huh. Fascinating. Well, I'll just read to you guys what I wrote down. And then the way that the worksheet has you do it is that you list the chain of events that actually happened. And then, this is why we say it's tedious to do one of these. Then you go back and one by one, you list more skillful, right, behaviors or thoughts, or, you basically revise it. So I'll read to you all kind of my original one from start to finish, and then I'll read you my revised one. So what happened, right? Well, first, I sent out that email to my clients. Hey, I'm back, right? I sent out that email. The initial thought I had right off the bat was, I hope people get back to me, right? If I'm actually being honest, if I revise that thought, I probably actually thought I need people to get back to me, right? I need to start scheduling people because I need to start making income again. Then, I have that thought, and then I find myself, fast forward a little bit, and I'm checking my phone. And I check my phone, and I see that no one's gotten back to me, and then I feel fear. And then I start to think to myself, well, what am I going to do? But what do I do, right? If my clients are not getting on my schedule, what does that mean? And then I found myself checking our bank account, and crunching numbers, basically, doing math for my business account, doing math for our personal account, crunch all the numbers, math, to be like, okay, well, what does this look like, right, if I don't have people coming back to me? So there's been a lot of that checking as well. Anytime I crunch those numbers, I just feel more fear. That's the emotion that just immediately follows when I look at the numbers. And then I think to myself, well, do I talk about this with Adam, my husband, right? I told him confidently, this is how much I'm going to start paying myself in August. So if now I'm shaky on how much I can pay myself, do I tell him? Or do I keep this to myself and try to cross my fingers that it's going to be okay? So I start to have that thought. Then, surprise, surprise, I feel more fear emotionally. Because then I get afraid to have that conversation where he might be like, I told you so, right? I knew that our finances weren't good, and you've assured me that they are. But now, when push comes to shove, we're not actually able to cover these things like daycare or that kind of a thing. So then when I start to feel that fear, then I just tell myself, okay, I'm gonna just reach back out to my clients, right? Like, I just need to contact them again. I just need to kind of poke people and make sure that they come back. And then what do? I just keep checking my phone. Like, over and over and over again. So that was how I wrote down the chain of events for myself. Now, if I revise that and come back to it. Oh, hey, you know what I actually just realized?
What?
The worksheet is tricky. So it lists step number 4 as you list the chain of events, which I just read to you. Step number 5, it asks some questions on like the next page before you go back to your revised list, I guess. So I'll go to step number 5, which asks, what exactly were the consequences in the environment, like from this behavior, right? My checking things, checking the bank account, checking my email, checking my text, you know, all the things that I was just constantly looking at. I mean, I think the biggest consequence in the environment is that I was and I have been and I still am really distracted. I'm just not as present when I'm constantly walking over to my work phone and checking my email. Like, I'm not as present, and it's hard to know the exact impact that has on my kids, right? My kids are pretty young, but I mean, I've certainly seen Noah, my 2.5-year-old, right, come over to me and like take my hand and want to take me places, and they can probably sense it, right? Like with what I'm thinking and feeling, right? I listed fear multiple times during that chain. How could that not be showing up a little bit, even in really subtle ways, in how I'm just like moving through the room, you know? So I'm distracted. It says, what are the consequences in myself? Which I like that question. The consequences in myself are that, I'm just marinating in that fear. And I just was also noticing, like, just feeling a real lack of confidence in myself, right? Like telling myself, which I'm sure there's chains that were left out, links that were left out of the chain when I'm listing things. But I've also had the thought come up of like, well, I thought my clients would be more eager to come back and work with me. Like, why hasn't even half of my caseload reached back out to me yet? Like, why is that? You know, so feeling that a little bit. And then it asks, what harm did my problem behavior cause? Which I kind of repeated the answer, but I feel like it does cause harm when I'm distracted from my kids. And they're like trying to get my attention. And I'm like, you know, I don't know. My daughter will be like letting me know that she needs to nurse. And I'm like, okay, I'll nurse you in just a second, but first I have to check my phone. Right? Like, that's not what I want. I don't want to be putting my kids' needs second because of my anxiety around like, do I have emails for my clients yet? Right, if that doesn't feel good. Okay, so if we revise it, if we take all those steps, and what you're supposed to do in the behavior chain analysis is take each one and come up with something different. So some things are the same, very few though. The one thing that is the same is the prompting event, right? I still would need to send out an email to my clients. However, what if I thought to myself and said, my clients are eager to work with me. Like, they're going to be excited to come back to me. They still want to work with me, and I feel confident in that. So if I were to tell myself that, rather than being like, I need people to come back to me, if I'm instead thinking to myself, oh, they want to come back to me. They're going to be eager to return to me. When I think that thought instead, I imagine my checking would go way down. I would probably be looking at my phone a couple times a day, instead of a couple times in 15 minutes. So that would probably happen. And then emotionally, I would probably feel a lot more confident and just like at ease within myself. Like feeling a lot more relaxed. If I'm thinking that to myself, checking my phone less often, I just feel a little more relaxed. And then telling myself, if I do notice, right, that people aren't emailing me as, like, I haven't gotten as many emails as I thought I would get, then telling myself, okay, I'm just going to follow up in a little bit. And also, I know how to attract new clients to me, right? I've been in private practice now for 6 years. I know how to do this. I know how to get people in the door. So I'm able to do those things. And if I tell myself that, then I wouldn't feel the need to check my bank account. like I did before. So I wouldn't even need to do that. I would just feel at peace. That was kind of what I came up with. And then with the question of like, well, do I talk about this with my husband or not? Like, I feel like if I really introspect and get into my wise mind a little bit, I think I would get to the place of being like, okay, I will talk to him. I'm going to wait and see what happens the next few weeks. And then I'll talk to him like at the end of the month if things are a struggle then. But I don't need to talk about this with him right now. I can wait and see what happens. It's only been a couple days. Like, let's just see. And that felt kind of like a wise mind choice to me. And then that just makes me feel even like more peace. Like, okay, I can just relax and I can be patient. And then also telling myself like, okay, you know, I'll just reach back out to the clients again soon who haven't contacted me yet. I'll follow up with them soon. And then I will also just take action to put my energy into other things, right? Like not only checking my email, but I can put action into like attracting those new clients to me. And then that also probably means that if I'm doing that, I still probably would only be checking my phone a couple of times a day. Because again, I wouldn't feel the need to be checking so much more. So that's how I revised it. And as I was going through that process, I'll share this. I was like, oh, I actually feel better. Like I did. I felt better when I was like, oh, if I actually were to play that out in real life, that would feel a lot better. Question number 7 asks, what is my prevention plan? Ways to reduce my vulnerability in the future. I wrote down, go to bed earlier, exclamation point. It's so much easier said than done, but I do know that that would really help me. I am a person who has always needed my sleep, and even if I can tell myself I'm functioning just fine on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night, I know that's not sustainable. So yes, even if it's just one night a week of going to bed earlier, that could make a difference. And also I think like in general, deciding to be a little more transparent in how I talk about finances with my husband, right? It's so easy to just be like, oh, this is a topic that stresses him out, so I won't talk about it. But that doesn't actually solve the problem. That actually just creates like further division with it. So if I were going to bed earlier and having more transparent conversations about finances at baseline, that probably would make this whole thing a little less stressful for me. It says ways to prevent the precipitating event from happening again. Well, mine's a little tricky because, again, my precipitating event was sending out an email to my clients being like, hey, I'm back from maternity leave. But what I did think about is that I would probably feel less urgency around a thing like that if I am just consistently feeding my business, like consistently trying to attract new clients to me. Because I'll be honest, I think I do what a lot of therapists do in private practice or business owners in general, where it's like business will be really good. And so we're not actively marketing ourselves. We're just like, okay, I've got plenty of clients, smooth sailing, I'm good. And then you'll have things shift and change and people leave. And then you're like, fuck. Yeah, like now I'm screwed. Now I need people. Now things are tough. And then you scramble. If I'm just not doing that scramble, that would make things feel a whole lot better. The last question asks, plans to repair, correct, and overcorrect the harm. So if I commit to myself that I'm only going to check my phone, like my work phone, morning before the kids wake up, when my son is napping in the afternoon, and then in the evening after the kids go to bed, that's enough. That, I think, corrects the harm of being really distracted around them and having this take up so much of, like, my mental space and, you know, that constant checking. That solves it right there, right? I do still need to check my work phone, but that's how I would want it to look. And I think that would help with being as distracted as I have been. So that's what I've got.
It's interesting because, like, I think in some ways, Michelle, you were more thorough than I was in going through it. But also you named fewer skills, like specific, like DBT skills.
It's true.
In the, what you were doing, I think, than I did. So it's just interesting to see always how differently you and I approach, tasks, or things like that. And it's interesting, like, I don't know, today my problem behavior isn't actually that horrible, but it is also always funny to me to be like, oh, Lord. Michelle checks her phone a lot. I throw things.
Right. Problem behavior can be a loose term.
Anyway, I just love you a lot. That's all. But no, I thought there was a lot of good insight. I think you saw things a little further back also than I did, so I thought that was really I don't know if you found that helpful, but I thought that was really interesting. And just because I got to just listen, I will say that at least one skill that I sort of sneakily heard you using was the E from, E?
Improve. Oh, I was actually just thinking that too. I was like,
right, the self-encouragement, right? That's the encouragement, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I heard you doing that one a lot. So I was like, all right, I can name a skill in there.
You can use my DBT superpower on me and make everything into a DBT skill.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that was definitely there. I will also say, I think the thing that I really used a lot skills-wise when I talked about revising it would be opposite action.
Ah, yeah, fair. Yep.
Because even though, like, yes, it's true. If I am thinking that, I'm probably genuinely going to feel less of an urge to check my phone. However, I can just choose opposite action. Like, even if I am feeling scared, I can just be like, okay, and I'm also not going to check right now.
Yeah. I'm going to put my phone away. I'm going to put it further away from me, so I'm less tempted.
Yes. So I hear that too, skills-wise, and a little bit of what I shared. Yeah. I guess the thing that I'll reflect on before I turn it over to you is, like, I was actually really surprised with going through the revising the links in the chain, how helpful that felt. At first I was just kind of like, this is the part of behavior chain analysis that I hate. This is the part that sucks the most about it, because you're supposed to do it one by one by one by one. I was like, this is hard. And actually, after I started doing it, it seemed to kind of unfold pretty organically, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, before I was feeling fear. Well, what do I think I would feel now? Oh, I'd probably feel this. Oh, and then this is what I said I would do. Well, I probably would actually do this instead. Like, it just, it felt actually easier than I thought to do that, which really did surprise me.
I also, this is going to be, maybe not at all. Maybe it has nothing to do with this, and I, like many people who have weird brains, are prone to seeing it as impacting things when it doesn't. But I almost wonder, like some of the granularity or the nuance with which you were able to, like, write down your chain, even though it was, I don't know, coming up on almost 10 days ago that some of the stuff happened. I realized, I wonder if part of that is how differently your mind's brain work with, like, my aphantasia and stuff, right? Like, my memories are so different than other people's. That's the thing I just know that's true. And so if I didn't narrate a part of the experience to myself, it essentially ceases to exist, right? So if I didn't, like, having a thought isn't enough. The thought, like, I have to basically think about the thought, or I have to, like, the thought have to be, like, I don't know, getting punched in the face by a thought that's so difficult for it to stand out enough for me to, like, remember exact thoughts or things like that. So I realized, like, my chain is way more vague. I could probably do it much more, like, closer to what you did if I were a lot closer to the event, like, closer in time.
Yeah.
Distance, once it's in my, like, memory, like, long-term memory at all, like...
But I think that
a lot of the details go.
Yeah, and it's really important to do, if you're going to do a behavior chain analysis, to do it soon.
ASAP. Yeah.
ASAP. Yeah. That's why, like, when I worked at the girls' group home and I was doing these all the time with the girls after their problem behaviors, which were pretty extreme problem behaviors, they would have to do one within, like, 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's just going to be a lot more useful. So anyway, I thought I'd put that out there because I know that mine has some vagueness in there, definitely. I'm like, wow, Michelle remembers that real good.
Well, Michelle's also still in this every day, right? Michelle was successfully checking her phone this morning, so I was kind of like, how do I channel this, right? What have been the ripples
that's fair.
from this prompting event? And yeah.
All right, so let's see about mine. So you gave a little bit of background. I'll give a little bit of background for mine. I could go on if I gave too much background for this, but high level, I think I mentioned this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in last month's episode, but my husband Robert got a new job in the last couple of months, and it is at a company that is renowned for its alcohol consumption, and well, I suppose renowned also for its alcohol distribution to its employees. And so, like, that's part of the background. It's just that my husband has had this new job. This is a new job where alcohol flows freely, and occasionally my husband has a hard time not partaking in alcohol that flows freely, to put it slightly mildly. So there's been this job. He's worked at this place before, but he had an interim of a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, where he wasn't working there. And historically there's been some issues that have come up because of drinking in this job. And anyway, so there's history there, I guess is what I'm saying, background-wise, like a couple years history, not recent history, but a couple years history. And one of the things that happens, so it's kind of funny, like, Michelle, you're sort of in it, like you said. My thing was a discrete event that happened, well, this Thursday, it'll be, oh no, last Thursday, it was 2 weeks ago, so a little over 2 weeks ago, about 2.5 weeks ago. And, but it will come up every other week, the same sort of event that I was struggling with, which is, like I said, the company gives out things, so every other Thursday they host an event for that team where they have food, and it's so it's catered and bartended kind of event every Thursday evening. All right, so I think that's enough background. I don't know. Like I said, this is one where, like, I feel like I'm either giving not a lot of background or, like, way too fucking much because there's so much history around things. So I'm going with slightly under, guys, for the sake of time and my own cognitive abilities today. All right, so let's actually try and go into it. So the first question, right? What is the problem behavior, right? So, high level, like we were talking about in the introduction, this is about excessive worrying. So that's the thing that was going on in the background, but the actual behavior is allowing that excessive worry to cause me to turn off my phone so that I was no longer reachable. So that's the problem behavior, is utilizing turning off my phone as a way of managing my stress and anxiety and worry. The prompting event that set off, like, the chain of reactions. Michelle, I'm thinking about the wrong night. Anyway, it's the same thing. It's just not the thing that happens every Thursday, guys. It was a different event. Haha. Anyway, the prompting event is that my husband had gone to an event that was being hosted for his team after work. I had some idea or expectation of when that would end, and he had texted me at about that time saying he was gonna be looking for a bus to come home, and then he'd let me know when he got on it, right? So that was the thing. He's like, I'm gonna look for a bus soon, I'll let you know when I catch one. And then I crickets for like an hour or two. And then a very ambiguous, very vague text that was basically, I'll be home sometime, it's a long story. Which is also to someone who has, you guys have heard me talk about the you're dead in a ditch somewhere anxiety, right? Like, this is definitely something that prompts my anxiety severely, to not have a lot of information and to have a place where I have a lot of worries already. So that was the prompting event, where those two texts, sequentially, not close to each other in time, but sequentially. And I will say, especially the last one, that was the I'll come home at some point long story text. So then the next question is describing the vulnerability factors that were in place. A few things that are true and have been true for several weeks now are I've been dealing with being sick. I'm mostly over it now, but I seem to be lingering at mostly over it for a solid week and a half or so now. So I actually think I may need to go back into the doctor to try and get some more medication. So I've had a cough and lung issues and asthma issues and stuff for several weeks now. So that was a background issue going on. It is interesting, just noting this, Michelle, that a lot of mine was body stuff. So that's just funny that you didn't go very body in your chain, but I went very body in my vulnerabilities. So physical illness, definitely poor food and poor sleep. My please skills were not rocking it, I guess, is what I'm saying, guys. In fact, hold on, let me think. None of them. Nope, not a single one. Not a single one of my please skills was, like, at an acceptable place. I know nobody gets all 5 good all the time, but man, that's a bad score to be getting 0. So I was not any of those appropriately. So my please was fucked. There you go. That's part of it. Definitely was having a lot of work stress. I think I mentioned this. The clinic is opening an intensive outpatient program, which is fucking awesome, but also stressful as shit. And I've been dealing with a lot of background grieving around my mother and the loss of my friend Rachel for the last several weeks. And so that's something that's definitely upping my emotional vulnerability lately. I noticed a definite spike in my anxiety, just background generally after Rachel died. So it's definitely something that has made me more susceptible to certain emotions or certain emotional states. And, inspired a little bit by Michelle and her going further back. There's definitely just some vulnerability around just, the history between my husband and I and drinking. So that's like a long-standing vulnerability around that topic. All right, now the part that I feel like I was like, look at me, I did a thing. We can't do it that thoroughly for the sake of the podcast. Then Michelle did a knockout job of it, and I was like, aight.
Even though I left off body sensations entirely as a category.
You still definitely got more.
Yeah, I'm glad that you tapped into that, though, and that you were noticed.
That's funny. Anyway, so let's see how I do with this one. So, like chain of events, right? I'm starting it with the prompting event, so my husband sent an ambiguous text. It is funny because in its own way, Michelle, the very first thing I mentioned after that is a body-based thing, which is just this, basically a panic attack, right? An anxiety attack, just this whoosh, right, of anxiety entering my body, right? Like physically just, to me, horrible anxiety always feels like someone has stuck a meat fork just under my xiphoid process, just under my ribs in the center, and is twisting it. And sometimes I swear I can feel my fucking adrenal glands perched on top of my kidneys go squish. Like they hurt when I get a bad enough panic attack. So yeah, my body sure as shit noticed what was going on first. That was the starting place for all of this. And then the cognitive stuff definitely came online where I was going through, remembering past incidences regarding his work and alcohol that had not gone well. I can't give you the specific, wording or flavor of the thoughts, but I know that I started basically past tripping, right? And just ruminating on things that have gone badly in the past, and also simultaneously using that to catastrophize, right? To future trip. So like running into the past to gather ammo and then running into the future to shoot shit down. I don't know. Ammo is a weird thing. Money? Fuel? Hey, there's an analogy that works. Running into the past to gather fuel and running into the future to burn it. Something like that. I was not in the present moment, really, at all. I was just like, things have been shitty, so they're gonna be shitty, right? Like that was more or less what my internal landscape looked like for a while. After that, after I got that news, or got the text from my husband, I do think one of the first good things I did do was I reached out to friends. So Michelle actually knows the story because she was one of the people I reached out to that night. So I reached out to a couple of friends to try and get some validation and some encouragement and things like that. And then I also worked on doing distracting / self-soothing with the five senses, I would say, with reading tried to read a book in the back. And that did help. That was, I call myself out. Rawr. I don't want to admit it, Michelle, but it was bad skill use, because what do we always say? You're not supposed to use self-soothing with the five senses if you're topping out the charts, right? Like if you're at that 8, 9, 10 on the emotion range. And I abso-fucking-lutely was. And so it did exactly the thing we always said it will do, which is not nothing, but not nearly enough to solve the thing, because it was never meant to. What's the problem solving, or is it not problem solving? That's an actual skill. What to do when what you're doing isn't working. That's the name of the wrap up at the end of the emotion. I just can't remember what they call it. Anyway, one of the things is you're not trying the right skill. Ding, ding, ding. I was not trying the right skill. So, I was trying distress tolerance skills when I ought to have been trying crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's
Is it crisis survival skills? Okay. My skills breakdown point. There you go, guys, right? We'll use all the jargon today. So I was reaching for the wrong skill, but it did do something, because of course it does something. It just didn't do much. And so it was after reaching out to friends and after trying to get in the bath, or I got in the bath, I lit the candles, I had the book, I did the whole thing. And that was not effective enough to give me what felt like enough relief. That is the point at which I decided that I wanted to turn off my phone as a way of increasing predictability and control, essentially. I would rather know for abso-fucking-lute-certain that I'm not going to hear from my husband than tolerate the distress of not knowing if I'll hear from him or not. It's a thing my brain does. This is not endorsing this as a healthy, effective, or useful way of thinking or behaving. So, yeah, that is what I do sometimes. I have done this before, so this is a problem behavior that was not the first time it's ever cropped up for me. It's definitely a thing I've done in the past, and it's what I did that night. So that's when we reach the problem behavior. So the next one is what are the consequences? I don't think I noticed as well, and I'm turning a page too, guys. I don't think I noticed as well as you did, Michelle, the idea of the consequences internally. Some of the ones I put down were that my husband's feelings were hurt. He ended up feeling confused, basically in a double bind, right? Where I'm like, hey, give me information. Also, I'm going to prevent you from being able to give me information, right? Which is understandable. That is not a place that anybody really wants to be put in. All right, so not like, I don't know, you fucked your marriage, not like that kind of harm, but it did harm to my relationship with my husband. That would be the main point where I would say was harm. For internal stuff, which I'm just sort of ad-libbing here because I liked that Michelle pointed that out. Well, I mean, it did technically do the thing, right? There's if we're doing pros and cons, it's important to acknowledge that there are reasons we engage in the problematic behavior. So it did reduce my anxiety. It did that thing. That was a thing. But also I felt guilty. I felt ashamed for doing that, for not being able to control my anxiety other ways, and felt a little I don't know, basically unskillful. In the moment would be some other internal consequences for that. So with the going back and redoing the chain, I wish I did it in my phone, guys. I didn't write it out like that, but it would have been much more helpful for doing this step if I'd actually drawn it out more the way Michelle did on the worksheet, or the way the worksheet does. But the first thing that I noticed is that I could have used check the facts when I started doing all the past and future tripping. Right? Instead, I could have been hey, now, what do I actually know? What is the information I actually have, right? Because that's my little cheat sheet for it. All right, in which case, if I'd have asked myself that question, I would have had to answer that I knew very fucking little. I mean, that was the thing causing me distress, but it was also true, right? In any story I was telling myself beyond that was story I was choosing to tell myself beyond that, and had no bearing on reality. I am not the arbiter of truth, right? My stories do not create the world. Thanks be to everything. But, alright, so check the facts. I think that's probably one of the first places that I could have been more skillful, or one of the ways that I could have been more skillful. I guess actually, first place I could have been more skillful would have been, I don't know, days or weeks ahead of time. Because I think this is an issue where I could probably put effective rethinking and paired relaxation into pretty effective use. And so I think actually that's something that I could have been doing more skillfully at any point in the process, but far in advance of actually running into the issue. And I could have probably done a dear man with my husband in text to ask for more communication, as opposed to getting kind of demanding and then shutting down, right? All communication entirely. I could have had more effective and deliberate communication. Right, I do want to be clear, it's not doing all of these things would have meant so I had no worry or no anxiety, right? I don't think that was on the menu, considering my physiology and our history. But I could have significantly lowered it, and I could have significantly lowered it in a way that was less damaging to my relationship and less damaging to me, right? And more effective, right? Would have actually lowered my anxiety more than the things that I did, right? Which is the ineffective skill use, right? That picked the wrong one, and turning off my phone. The next question, number 7, is describing in detail the prevention strategy I have for how I will keep myself from being as vulnerable moving forward. It's funny. Really, I wrote out a whole list of things, but now that I'm looking at it, it's just tend to your fucking please skills, Kate. That's really what the whole list essentially boils down to. Is take care of your fucking body, woman. Which I had not been doing a very good job. Well, I had partially not been doing a good job, partially it had just been a difficult job of late. And also just to be engaging in my grieving in a way that leaves me still well-nourished and with emotional space, right? Not trying to shove that to a side, but interacting with it deliberately and intentionally so that it isn't sapping as much from me in the background. And last but not least, describe what you're going to do to repair important or significant consequences of the problem behaviors. So, because this is a thing that happened a few weeks ago, I have already engaged in some repair here. My husband and I discussed this whole situation in our couples therapy session, I think that week. And I had a repair discussion with my husband to validate and acknowledge his experience of it and the double bind that I put him in, and tried to help him better understand that, not as an excuse, but just because understanding generally feels better, help him better understand that it's a crisis survival tool that I utilize, not something that's pointed or has anything to do with him, right? Like if I get to the point where I'm turning off my phone to manage anxiety, it's because I'm really fucking anxious. And it has nothing to do with him, or us as a couple, trying to help him better understand that. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Did I do a speed run? Am I okay?
I think you did a great job summarizing all that happened. And I think kind of really capturing, like, I don't know, the essence or the flavor of how it felt for you to turn off your phone. Because one could make the argument that, wasn't a problem behavior, that was really skillful, right? Like you practice stop, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Right? Like what could make that argument? But what you were really acknowledging as you went back through everything is you were like, just kind of looking at, okay, but I know what place that was coming from for me. Right? Mm-hmm. I knew all the kind of, to use the the language that they're using on the behavior chain analysis worksheet of like, I'm aware of all of the thoughts and emotions and physical sensations I was feeling like around that. And I knew that I basically just kind of made this decision in the moment to be like, screw this, I'm out. Like,
yes, exactly. It was running away. It was piecing out and running away hardcore. Yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so then when you're like, okay, then what does it look like to approach this or like tolerate this like a little differently in the future? I think you named some really great skills. And one of the things that I think really stood out to me in your sharing was really acknowledging like how, we are not perfect, you guys. We know a lot about DBT, but we're not perfect in how we use it. But that you really talked about like, oh, I thought that I was choosing something really skillful by using self-soothing. And now when I look back at it, I can really see that that was like the wrong skill for the moment. And I think you naming that is really helpful because it just normalizes for people that experience I think that they can have so often when they're like, well, I was using skills, but it didn't work. And just like without shame, like without shitting on yourself or without shitting on the skill, to just be like, maybe it was the wrong place, wrong time for that skill. And okay, what did I learn from that? And what skill would I choose to use differently in the future? Because again, kind of the behavior chain analysis really sets us up for that in terms of looking at, okay, what actually happened and what did I learn? And now how would I revise this and do it differently? And what would that look like? So I think you just overall really spoke to that pretty nicely.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. It wasn't really until I was talking about it or thinking about it in that way that I realized that it was just the wrong skill. So yeah, absolutely. I want people to know that, shit, I've been doing this stuff for over half my life now. I went into DBT when I was 19. I still fuck it up sometimes, right? So please don't ever feel bad about the fact that it's confusing or you're like, in the moment, I don't know what skill to reach for. Sometimes that means you don't know what skill to reach for. Sometimes that means you think you do. And you're wrong, right? This can be the problem with having a favorite or a comfort skill, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more comforting to slip into a nice warm bath with candles, guys, than to stick my face in the ice water. But sticking my face in the ice water was the correct choice. Or would have been the correct choice. So, also fair warning against favorite skills. Because sometimes it means you reach for them when they're not appropriate. So I did definitely notice that. And I like this because I think it's nice. I don't know, my little reflection came, I think, from both listening to you and mine when I was thinking about it, giving it now, was just, I don't know, it can be grounding sometimes for me to look at the harm of things, both, like, sometimes realize that it's not as bad, also sometimes to have validation of how my behaviors impact myself, and, like, I don't know, compassionate acknowledgement for how I impact other people. Like, sometimes it can help me be like, yeah, all right, I can see what this did, in a way that feels a little bit easier, like accountability, but not as sharp. I don't know. I think probably because it comes where it does in this process, where you've hopefully seen a lot of how and why you got to where you were, but still an important thing to acknowledge. So I like that part of it too.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we're going to start wrapping up for today. So I think as far as wrapping up goes, before we get into closing moment, I'll put the call out there, right? I really appreciated that this was a listener suggested topic.
Oh, yeah.
We love getting topic suggestions. Like,
Truth.
We really, really do. Don't get me wrong, we have our own ideas that we come up with. But when it comes to these monthly topic episodes, we really want to make sure that we're putting out content that is helpful for you guys, that you want to hear about. And so tell us. I mean, this listener posted in the Facebook group, I think, right? They just made a post.
No, that's just an email. That was an email.
Oh, was it an email? Oh, okay, great. I mean, that's a great way to do it.
Even better.
It's just by emailing us directly. Yes, even better, I would say, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of the Facebook group. But yeah, reach out to us and say, hey, I've really been wondering about this. Can you guys do an episode on it? And we can't guarantee that we will. Again, at first glance, like with this one, I was like, I don't know if we can really do that. But then I look at it, I'm like, yes, we can. We can make this work, right? And it was really insightful, I think, to us personally. And I hope it's helpful for all of you listening to hear us share personally like this, right? To be like, okay, we're going to take this thing, we're going to apply it to ourselves, and we just hope every time that there's something that you can take from our personal experiences and apply it to your life that you can relate to and you can find helpful. So I really hope that that was everyone's experience today, listening to us go through the behavior chain analysis. And I don't know, it's definitely still not my favorite. Absolutely not. But I will say, like, if you find yourself, some people love behavior chain analyses, I've heard, but if you're in the same boat as Kate and I where you don't really like this too much, I would encourage you to give it a go. Do what we did today. Pick something you've been worrying about and work through the worksheet. And also, the closing moment that we're about to do will be helpful.
It's close.
To think about things.
It's not quite.
It'll be close to doing the worksheet itself. So, yeah. Hopefully this was a helpful episode, and I'm really appreciative of the listener who suggested it. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Same. Yeah. It's hard sometimes, to know, like, well, that's interesting to us, or it's academically interesting, but is it interesting to everybody else? So, at least when folks, when listeners write in, we're like, okay, you are a real human.
Yes,
asking for a real thing. That's reassuring.
Yep. And if it's helpful to one person, it's probably going to be helpful to quite a few people.
Exactly. It's like why I always ask the question in class. Someone else is wondering.
Yes.
All right. Let's see if my traffic noise will leave me alone long enough to do this closing moment, huh, guys? All right. Go ahead and get settled in. Find a comfortable position, whatever that means for you today. Sitting, standing, laying down. Whatever feels good and right to your body. And if you're safe and feel comfortable doing so, I invite you to close your eyes. To begin with, we're just going to notice our breath. You don't need to breathe any more slowly or any more deeply than you are naturally. It's just about tuning in. About really focusing in on the rhythms and the sensations of your breath and letting them welcome you into your body and into the present moment. So I'd like you to take a moment today to think about a topic where you really spiral. Where do you worry? Where does your anxiety dwell? Not something that comes up now and then or, is shallow or surface level, but What really pulls you down when it gets triggered? This could be something that comes up regularly or something that only comes up every few years. But just for now, try and find something that really hits you hard. How do you know when that's happening? How can you identify that topic, and how can you identify what it's doing, the impact it's having on you? What do you feel in your body? Do you have awareness of certain kinds of thoughts or emotions that come up for you along with the worry or anxiety? And when you're in that spiral, either in the act of spiraling down or at the very bottom, what's a behavior that you engage in that just doesn't serve you? This could be something relatively minor to something relatively catastrophic. This is a place for self-inquiry. How do you behave that doesn't serve you? And once you've identified the problem behavior for yourself, can you think of something that you could do when you first notice yourself starting to spiral that might interrupt the process of you reaching that ineffective behavior? Is there something when you first notice those sensations or those thoughts or those emotions in your body, when you first observe yourself in that pattern of spiraling? What's something you could do to interrupt yourself? Take a moment and try and think of a skill that you could use here. Perhaps this is a skill that is in the category of distraction, or of soothing, or of mindfulness. This is going to be unique to you and to your situation. But try to think of at least one skill that you could use early on in your process of spiraling. And take a moment to imagine yourself utilizing it. What it maybe looks like, or feels like, or sounds like. How your body responds to the notion. What thoughts come up for you when you imagine practicing that skill in that situation? Just taking a moment to notice, to consider, and if it feels helpful, to remember, so that you can carry this with you past this moment, past this meditation, and into the rest of your life. But for now, you can welcome yourself back into your body and back into the room, maybe gently moving your fingers or toes, gently stretching your wrists or ankles, neck or shoulders, whatever feels good and right to your body. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.